Well, the United States has hailed the strikes on Iranian nuclear sites as an incredible and overwhelming success that devastated the country's nuclear program. This after US President Donald Trump ordered airstrike operations on Iran's 3 nuclear sites this past weekend. A move, it said, was in order to destroy or severely degrade Iran's nuclear program. Reacting to the US strike, President Cyril Ramaphosa said it was South Africa's hope that President Trump would use his influence to pursue a dialogue between Israel and Iran to resolve the issue of disputes. Now, to discuss this further, we are joined in studio, firstly online, we are joined by Professor Jannie Rossouw. He's an Honorary Professor at Wits Business School and an Economist at Altitude Wealth. And here in studio with me, I've got Sello Hatang. He's the Executive Director of Hata Mmoho. It is so good to have both of you. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you very much for that.
Prof, let me come to you and let's just get a question in to give us a little bit of background as to where we're at the moment, because, you know, let's talk factually, in factual terms. What has actually been destroyed in Iran, and how is this success being measured by Washington?
Yeah, Len, thank you for that question. This is a success in the mind of President Donald Trump, who wanted to shall I say, derail any further development of a nuclear arms in Iran. For me, however, where we are at the moment, we have a lot of economic uncertainty as a result of this strike. And we will see how the financial markets react today and in the weeks to come. We've already seen the oil price moving up last week. It will move up more this week. We've seen financial markets in Asia Pacific down this morning. So from that perspective, big economic reactions. It remains a question in my mind whether it's really justified for the USA to just go into Iran and destroy 3 sites. I mean, it is really a question in my mind that I'm still trying to answer for myself.
Yeah, indeed, because at the end of the day, I mean, if we put the facts on the table, there is still no evidence that there is nuclear in Iran. I mean, this is what facts are saying. I don't know. I mean, Sello, I'm not sure if you want to weigh in on that conversation.
Yeah, the sad, and thanks again, Leon, and good morning. The sad reality is that there are 2 phrases that I want to use that are used as ruses to cause chaos around the world. One is terrorism, the other one is weapons of mass destruction. And we must try to not be those forgetful people that in 2003, the same happened. And I think if we are to achieve anything as global community in terms of global peace and security, we cannot continue on the same trajectory. And I was saying to Sakina earlier on and you that it's a pity that at the moment there's no Nelson Mandela who can call out what's happening like he did in 2003, when he said what we faced with back then was a George W. Bush who, he said, we have a president with too much power who's not thinking straight. And what he's going to do is to lead us into what would be a Holocaust. And this war, which was Iraq then, is going to outlive all of us, he said. And he's died. 20 years on, more than 20 years on, that war still rages in terms of chaos in Iraq. Yeah. And I think if we are to do anything, is to always ask ourselves, what are these people who are causing chaos around the world trying to do? Because they are not giving us peace, they're certainly not making the world more secure.
And they're certainly making it more difficult for everybody in this world, and that goes without saying. I mean, we're already seeing, and Prof, I'm going to come back to you, Brent crude, $114, each additional week of a missile. The exchange adds about $4. This could push prices to $150 a barrel. And this impacts us here. It impacts the entire world with the increase in prices and making life even more expensive and more almost unbearable. I mean, Prof, the repercussions of this?
Yeah, of course, if we have a sharply higher oil price, it will have, for us in South Africa, very severe inflationary impacts. But not only in South Africa, all countries suddenly faced with much higher oil prices will face higher inflation. Inflation is never good. Inflation is never a policy instrument. So this will also lead then to uh, instability in exchange rates, which will also be bad for the exchange rate of the South African rand. That will increase the cost of doing business in the case of South Africa. So a lot of increased economic uncertainty this morning, and as I've said just now, it will take a while to figure out exactly where we will find new stability in terms of prices and trends on international financial markets.
Yeah, Sello, you wrote a wonderful piece in the City Press, and I mean there are many quotable lines that do come out of it. But you know, I sort of in a way this resonated with me, where you said it's the same script and a different cast, and I know you alluded to it with former President Bush. You really reflected on how the West often recycles roles: liberator one moment, aggressor the next, and now you have President Trump calling for peace after they went out and bombed Iran over the weekend. How? How do you have peace talks after something like that?
So maybe I should reflect on that piece.
Yeah, please.
Because all I was doing was trying to write about love. And love then dragged me to politics. I guess love and politics tend to go together. And in this moment, we find ourselves with this same script where on one hand, you have someone saying, we need to keep negotiating. But you were negotiating with this person. While you are negotiating, they bomb your country. How does that work?
Yeah.
And also, while you are trying to negotiate, you hear their partner, their ally, saying, we want regime change. How are you going to negotiate with those people? It makes a mockery of the system. And I think I was really... one was encouraged by the words that came out of the presidency, who are calling for more dialogue. Because we are a country that's always advocating for more dialogue instead of people who are always at war. Let's remind ourselves of what happened when Gaddafi was killed. To date, we still don't know what Gaddafi did. I don't know. I don't know if you know.
No.
There's no reason for him to have been killed. If you are being honest, if you are talking about facts. Today, where's his country? They used to have healthcare that looked after everybody. They used to have fuel that was cheaper. He used to support the AU. He used to do this. Today, it's chaos in his country. There's slave trade of Africans. And I was in Morocco recently with Mo Ibrahim, and Mo gave what was a 5 minute of one of the most powerful speeches, where he was asking for peace and security in the world. But he said, one of the saddest things is that the world forgets that in terms of numbers, the most people who are dying in conflict today are in Africa. Sure. Combined, if you combine Palestine, Ukraine, yeah. And now what's happening at the moment, all those numbers combined are less than what number of Africans dying daily. But do you hear anything about Sudan? Do you hear much about DRC? So lives are still being weighed. A hospital that gets bombed in Palestine is not the same in terms of weighting as a hospital that's bombed in Israel.
Yeah.
And the bomber is the same.
Yeah.
So I think if we are to begin to be honest as a global community, we have to look at the mirror and say the world finds itself in a place where we are not going to move anywhere in terms of moving the needle for peace for as long as we have the same actors.
And the problem is exactly what you're saying, because now we've moved the attention, and whether it's deliberately or not, the cameras have suddenly, and the attention has moved to what's happening in Iran and Israel. Meantime, there's Gaza at the same time that is being completely obliterated, where people are being forced into an area and there's just no food. They are fighting and killing each other for food because they are starving to death. And these are the things that are happening in our time, and we know they're happening even though there are no cameras allowed there, because that's what Israel says. And these are the kind of things, unfortunately, that we are putting up with. But I want to, it's hard to balance out the conversations because I'm also trying to get a perspective of where South Africa comes into all of this and where we perhaps stand. And Prof, let me bring you into this because I'd like to talk economics as well, because, you know, there could be secondary scenarios for sanctions on South Africa. Is that possible? Because obviously going to the International Court of Justice, that's something that we have done already. And we're also exposed through various channels through BRICS and the Development Bank and our relations with Iran. Where do we sit in all of this?
Yeah, unfortunately, this can escalate to the point where we have sanctions against South Africa. We know what happened before when we had sanctions in South Africa. We went into a deep recession. Our economy barely survived. We had problems with job creation. Incidentally, it sounds much like we have at the moment in South Africa without sanctions. So we will be very hard hit by sanctions. My sense at the moment is that South Africa should stand back a little. There is this old expression, when the elephants fight, the grass will get injured. And this is really a case where there can be collateral damage in respect of other countries. So my view would be that we should sort of stay away. This is not our fight at this moment. South Africa's best interests, in my view, will be protected by being as neutral as possible. We may not agree with what is happening. I do not agree with what is happening, but we need to think here about what is best for our country, what is best for the people in our country, rather than to have politicians taking positions to show that they can play a role in the international arena.
And Prophet, and that perhaps is maybe a problem in itself, because we are watching history unfolding in front of our eyes where people are being starved to death. And if we do stay in our lane, are we not in a way almost condoning this? Somebody like a Mandela, who came out and spoke about that, was brave enough to speak and say, this is unacceptable. I might be wrong and I might be taking a different stance, but Sello, I'm not sure if you agree. Should we just stay in our lane?
That's where I differ with Prof. I think it's when things go wrong like they are now that South Africa should be playing a role. Because you need a player who says, we've been there, we've seen what conflict can do. And in a way, you cannot, when we had apartheid, can you imagine if countries said, no, that's their business? That would have been a catastrophe. And I think if the thing of saying, stay in your lane is what the US is advocating for countries like South Africa. Don't do anything, just be quiet. Because if you raise a voice, you will then suffer the consequences. Look at what's happening now. Just a simple thing, just as countries never used to just punish you for saying something against a leader of a country, and then they deny you a visa.
Yeah.
We are now in those times that by being here today, where, by the way, I was very reluctant to come and talk to you because all I wanted was to talk about love, like I said, Whitney Houston. That's all I wanted to talk about. And you dragged me here to come and talk about Iran and Israel. But who knows, I might not be able to be allowed to the US next time.
Yeah.
Because countries have now, are now targeting individuals. You speak too much, you say too much, we won't let you in. Countries must stand up, and South Africa has been shown the way by Madiba.
Yeah.
We cannot lose that way. We must advocate where we need to for peace, for a more equal society where people are treated fairly. And in this instance, it is time for us to stand up as a constitutional country that says international law exists.
Yeah.
Everybody must follow it.
So, Prof, let me get you to respond to this. And I mean, we obviously, in a very quickly, this is the end of the interview, but, if we look at where we're at, we look at the world and the situation and where to from here, what do you foresee happens next?
Well, in responding to what Sello just said, I have to point out that we do not have a Madiba at the moment. If we had a Madiba, South Africa's position, in my own view, would have been completely different. But unfortunately, in these difficult times, we do not have a Madiba to lead us. And we do not have the international capital that Madiba brought us. So where to from here? We will have to assess our position very carefully. We will have to see how the financial markets react, as I've said. We will have to assess what's going to happen with inflation. As all the viewers know, as you know, I'm really against inflation. I expect higher inflation as a result of that, and that might lead to a monetary policy reaction in the case of South Africa. So, unfortunately, a lot of uncertainty, and we will only know in weeks to come where we are heading.
All right, Professor, thank you. Thanks for your views. Thanks for your analysis. Sello, thank you as well for coming in and talking to us about the situation that is unfolding in Iran and Israel, and of course now the United States playing an active role, getting involved over the weekend as well. So this is a moving target and one that we're watching very carefully.